The phone buzzed, a viper in Eleanor Vance's pocket, and her mother's words flared across the screen, sharp and familiar. "Eleanor, I think it's best you don't come to Olivia's wedding. You'll simply ruin the atmosphere. We want her special day to be perfect." The sting was a familiar ghost, yet it still bled, confirming once again that in her family's glittering world, a brilliant marine biologist was merely an unsuitable shadow. A sigh, heavy with decades of being overlooked, escaped her lips, the vast, indifferent ocean outside her lab window suddenly feeling like her only true family. The vibrations of her phone shattered the silence of Eleanor Vance's lab, a jarring intrusion into the serene hum of filtering systems and the gentle gurgle of her reef tanks. It was a text from her mother, Patricia Vance. Eleanor hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. History dictated that nothing good ever came from Patricia's unsolicited communications. With a deep breath that tasted faintly of ozone and salinity, she opened it. "Eleanor, darling, about Olivia's wedding next month. I think it would be best if you didn't come. We want everything to be absolutely perfect for her special day, and frankly, your unconventional presence might disrupt the aesthetic. We're aiming for a certain caliber of guest, you understand. Don't worry, we'll send pictures. Love, Mother." The words struck with the familiar precision of a poisoned dart. Unconventional presence, disrupt the aesthetic, certain caliber of guest, not a single mention of her actual sister, Olivia, but a chilling emphasis on appearances and social standing. It wasn't an uninvitation, it was a decree, delivered with a saccharine facade that only made the sting more acute. Patricia, ever the master manipulator of public perception, was ensuring her perfect daughter, Olivia, had a perfect day, untainted by the family's inconvenient, brilliant marine biologist. Eleanor, the quiet, science-obsessed child, had always been the black sheep, the one who preferred the company of plankton to party guests, who measured success in breakthroughs, not social climbing. A wave of exhaustion washed over her. Decades of this. Decades of being subtly, and not so subtly, told she wasn't enough, that her passions were a quaint eccentricity, not a calling. Olivia, her older sister, had seamlessly slipped into the role of the Vance's golden child, elegant, socially adept, pursuing a career in high-end event planning that Patricia deemed suitable. Olivia's life was a perfectly curated Instagram feed, while Eleanor's was a deep dive into the unpredictable beauty of the ocean, often involving muddy boots and salt-crusted hair. Her family, with their manicured lawns and designer labels, saw her as an anomaly, an unsuitable shadow cast upon their polished image. Eleanor stared at the complex coral formations in the tank before her, each polyp a tiny, vibrant life contributing to a larger ecosystem. Here, every organism had its place, its purpose, its inherent worth. Unlike in her family's world, where worth was a currency of status and superficiality. A tear pricked at her eye, not for the lost wedding, but for the persistent ache of being a disappointment to the people who should have championed her. Just then, a warm hand settled on her shoulder, and the familiar scent of wood smoke and sea salt enveloped her. Liam O'Connell, her partner of 3 years, stood beside her, his kind eyes already sensing her distress. He didn't need words. He understood the silent battles she waged against her past. He was an Irish fisherman turned ocean conservationist, rugged and grounded, with a heart as vast as the sea he protected. He saw her, truly saw her, not as the family's unconventional member, but as a force of nature, a brilliant mind, a compassionate soul. "What is it, love?" he murmured, his thumb gently stroking her arm. She handed him the phone. His jaw tightened as he read the message, a slow burn igniting in his usually placid gaze. "Your mother," he finally said, his voice laced with restrained anger, "is a piece of work." He pulled her into his embrace, holding her tightly as she finally allowed the tears to fall, tears not of sorrow, but of weary resignation. He pulled back, cupping her face in his hands. "Eleanor, my darling, you deserve so much more than their petty judgments. You deserve a family that celebrates you, not tolerates you." He knelt then, right there amidst the bubbling tanks and scientific equipment, pulling a small, intricately carved wooden box from his pocket. I know I'm not a man of grand gestures, but I know this. My life is better with you in it. And I want to build a life, a real family with you. A life where your brilliance shines brightest, unclouded by anyone's shallow expectations. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring with a deep blue sapphire, like a drop of the ocean itself. Eleanor Vance, will you marry me? Her breath hitched. His sincerity, his unwavering love, was a stark contrast to the cold calculation of her mother's text. This wasn't just a proposal, it was an invitation to freedom, a chance to finally choose her own path, her own family, her own worth. It was the catalyst, the defiant yes to a life of authenticity, far from the suffocating shadows of the Vance family's superficial world. She looked into his eyes, clear and true. "Yes, Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, 1,000 times yes. The whispered yes felt less like a promise and more like a declaration of war against the shadows of her past. Eleanor and Liam, hand in hand, began to weave the tapestry of their future, starting with a wedding that would be as authentic and profound as the love they shared. Forget sprawling ballrooms or extravagant centerpieces designed to impress Patricia. Eleanor envisioned an intimate beach ceremony on a pristine, windswept coastline. A place where the ocean's vastness mirrored the depth of her passion for marine biology and Liam's boundless spirit. Every decision for their wedding was a deliberate rejection of the superficiality that had long suffocated her. There would be no distant relatives who only knew her as Olivia's sister, no forced smiles, no scrutinizing gazes. Instead, Eleanor carefully curated a guest list that comprised her true family, Liam's large, boisterous Irish clan, whose warmth enveloped her like a comforting blanket, her cousin Chloe, the only Vance who had ever seen beyond the surface, her dedicated research team, whose late nights and shared triumphs forged an unbreakable bond, and a constellation of graduate school friends and esteemed mentors from the global ocean conservation community. Each invitation was a heartfelt testament to connection, not a social obligation. She pored over details, not for show, but for meaning. Locally sourced seafood, eco-friendly decor, and a playlist compiled of their shared memories. It was a celebration of purpose, of genuine connection, and of the quiet, unwavering resolve that had defined her journey. The most anticipated reply came from Dr. Evelyn Reed, the titan of marine biology, whose pioneering work had inspired Eleanor since childhood. Eleanor had sent the invitation with a trembling hand, half expecting a polite decline from such a busy luminary. Instead, an email arrived, concise and impactful. "Eleanor, congratulations. Your dedication to the oceans and now your personal happiness is inspiring. I would be honored to attend." In fact, the next sentence made Eleanor gasp. "My team is developing a documentary series on women in science who are making an impact both professionally and personally. Your story, your journey, and this celebration of authentic love and passion would be a powerful narrative. Would you consider allowing us to feature your wedding?" Eleanor reread the email, her heart pounding. Dr. Reed, her idol, wanted to showcase her wedding, not as a spectacle, but as a story of worth and dedication. This wasn't about upstaging anyone, it was about finally being seen, truly seen, for who she was on a global stage. The idea was daunting, but the thought of Patricia's reaction and the sheer irony brought a mischievous smile to her face. This wasn't just a wedding, it was becoming a public affirmation of everything her family had denied her. It was the universe, it seemed, finally acknowledging the echo of her worth. After a long, thoughtful conversation with Liam, whose unwavering support was her constant anchor, Eleanor sent her reply, "Dr. Reed, it would be an honor. We would love to share our story." The die was cast. Olivia Vance's wedding had been, by all accounts, a dazzling spectacle. The meticulously chosen estate, with its manicured gardens and imported floral arrangements, glittered under an autumn sun, a flawless tableau Patricia had orchestrated to affirm the Vance family's impeccable taste and rising social standing. Olivia, radiant in her custom gown, moved through the day with a practiced grace, a golden trophy in her mother's grand exhibit. It was a performance designed not for love, but for display. Meanwhile, miles away, Eleanor's own wedding preparations were unfolding with a quiet, vibrant energy that stood in stark contrast. Her small apartment buzzed with the hushed excitement of calls to local artisans for sustainably sourced flowers, discussions with a beloved chef for a menu celebrating local seafood, and the ongoing collaboration with Dr. Evelyn Reed's documentary team. The team, unobtrusive yet omnipresent, captured not just the nascent plans for the ceremony, but Eleanor's passionate work in marine conservation and the deep, authentic bonds she shared with her colleagues and mentors. Her wedding was becoming a celebration of purpose, connection, and a life truly lived, rather than merely presented. The first whisper of Eleanor's unique plans reached the Vance family via a society blogger known for her premature scoops. Tucked away in a paragraph about upcoming noteworthy nuptials was a brief, almost dismissive mention of Eleanor Vance, the marine biologist, planning a documentary featured, eco-conscious ceremony with world-renowned scientists and conservationists expected to attend, hinted at by the involvement of the illustrious Dr. Evelyn Reed. The article, intended as a slight, landed like a tactical bomb. Patricia, still basking in the afterglow of Olivia's perfect day, read the piece at her breakfast table, her perfectly coiffed hair bristling with disbelief. Eleanor? A documentary? World-renowned scientists. Her voice, usually a controlled purr, rose to a shrill crescendo. This is a calculated insult. A deliberate attempt to steal Olivia's thunder, to make her seem common. Richard, engrossed in his financial papers, merely grunted, a habitual avoidance of his wife's histrionics. But even he felt a flicker of irritation. Eleanor, always the quiet one, the odd one out, was suddenly attracting this kind of attention. It felt unseemly. Olivia, receiving the link from a concerned friend, felt a cold, not a fury tighten in her stomach. Her wedding had been flawless, a masterpiece of social engineering. Now Eleanor, the sister who couldn't even manage a proper social conversation, was somehow orchestrating a spectacle that threatened to eclipse it all. She always wanted attention, Mom, Olivia seethed later that day, her voice edged with a familiar resentment. She's always been jealous. This is her twisted way of getting back at us for not appreciating her important work. The narrative solidified. Eleanor was being vindictive, attention-seeking, and profoundly disrespectful. Patricia paced the opulent living room, her mind racing, churning with a potent mix of wounded pride and strategic malice. "We cannot allow this," she declared, her eyes glinting. "Her wedding cannot be seen as more significant than yours, Olivia. It would be a social catastrophe. People will talk. They'll say we neglected her, that she found her true family elsewhere." The thought was unbearable. We must go. We must demonstrate our support, assert our presence. Show them she isn't as independent as she thinks. Show them we are a family. Richard, seeing the storm gathering, offered a weak protest about making a scene, but Patricia's iron will crushed it instantly. "It's not making a scene, Richard. It's damage control. It's asserting our narrative." They would crash Eleanor's wedding, not out of affection, but out of a desperate, entitled need to control the optics, convinced Eleanor's grandstanding was a plea for their approval. Eleanor, meanwhile, received a frantic call from Chloe, her cousin, who'd heard the rumors swirling through their extended family. "Your mother and Olivia are furious, Elle. They think you're doing this just to spite them." Eleanor listened, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. She wasn't surprised. It was precisely the reaction she'd anticipated, a predictable performance from a family incapable of seeing beyond their own ego. She pictured Patricia, fuming over tea, dissecting every word of the blog post. She could practically hear Olivia's aggrieved sighs. Later, in a pre-production meeting with Dr. Reed and the documentary crew, Eleanor shared her family's anticipated arrival. "They will come," she stated calmly, her eyes fixed on the lead director. "They'll believe their saving face, asserting their claim. They'll try to blend in, perhaps even subtly undermine me. I want you to capture it all. Every awkward glance, every forced smile, every revealing interaction. Let their true motivations, their true character, be part of this story. Let the world see the contrast, not just of two weddings, but of two lives, two sets of values. Her voice was soft, but imbued with an unshakable resolve. The director nodded, a flicker of appreciation in his eyes. The stage was set, not just for a wedding, but for a public, unscripted revelation. Eleanor, in a simple yet elegant gown the color of seafoam, emerged onto the soft, sun-drenched sand. The gentle murmur of the ocean provided a natural symphony, far more authentic than any orchestral fanfare. Dr. Evelyn Reed, her silver hair catching the light, walked proudly beside her, a beacon of intellectual mentorship and surrogate maternal warmth. Eleanor's gaze found Liam O'Connell waiting by an archway woven with local wildflowers, his eyes, the color of a stormy Irish sea, alight with adoration and profound respect. Every face in the small gathering radiated genuine joy. Her research team, graduate school friends, renowned conservationists from around the globe, her chosen family, her true tribe. Tucked away at the periphery, almost an afterthought, sat Patricia and Richard Vance, flanked by a rigid Olivia. Patricia, in her perfectly tailored but incongruous silk pantsuit, surveyed the scene with a pinched expression, her eyes starting for any perceived imperfection. Richard, the silent observer, adjusted his tie, his discomfort palpable. Olivia shifted, a faint blush on her cheeks, sensing the profound disconnect. The documentary crew, subtly positioned, captured their every reaction. Vows exchanged, a testament to shared purpose against crashing waves, ended with a heartfelt kiss and a resounding cheer. The ceremony segued seamlessly into a laid-back reception. Tables laden with fresh seafood and local delicacies fostered animated conversations about marine research and global initiatives. It wasn't merely a party, it was a gathering of minds, a convergence of passion. Patricia, however, mistook the informal atmosphere for a chance to assert her misplaced social standing. Spotting a distinguished man, she approached him with practiced condescension. "You must be one of the local fishermen," she simpered. The man, Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a Nobel laureate, paused, bewildered. "No, madam," he replied gently, "I'm a marine biologist." "And you are?" Patricia stammered, her facade crumbling. Her eyes flickered to the documentary camera, a fleeting memory of its presence quickly overridden by indignation. Richard, witnessing the gaffe, merely winced, burying himself deeper into his cider. He'd always deferred to Patricia. Now, in this foreign environment where his corporate charm held no sway, he was lost. Olivia, observing her mother's disastrous networking attempt, felt a prickle of genuine shame. She recognized Dr. Tanaka from a journal Eleanor had, a journal Olivia had dismissed as boring. The sheer magnitude of her family's ignorance, usually cloaked in superiority, was now laid bare. She watched Eleanor, effortlessly engaging world leaders in her field, moving with a grace and confidence Olivia lacked, a stark contrast to her mother's clumsy attempts at validation. Later, as the golden hour painted the sky, Eleanor rose for her toast, Liam's hand a warm anchor at her back. Her voice, clear and steady, carried across the crowd. Many years ago, she began, her gaze sweeping over her friends, mentors, and Liam. "I dreamt of a life defined not by wealth or status, but by purpose, discovery, and authentic connection. There were times I was told my dreams were foolish, my passions inconvenient, my very presence unsuited for certain grand occasions." A pregnant pause hung, heavy with history. Patricia flinched, her eyes narrowing. Richard shifted. Olivia looked down. "But today," Eleanor continued, her voice swelling, "looking at all of you, my true family, my incredible community, I know I've found something far more precious than any inherited legacy, a life built on worth, on love, and on the profound joy of being truly seen. Thank you for seeing me, for celebrating with us. This is more than a wedding. It's a testament to finding where you truly belong." A wave of applause and cheers enveloped her, genuine and heartfelt. The documentary cameras zoomed in, capturing the radiant smile on Eleanor's face, then panning to the Vances, their expressions a mixture of confusion, indignation, and dawning dread. Their fate, carefully documented and soon to be broadcast, was sealed. The documentary episode, titled Echoes of Worth, a scientist's celebration, hit streaming platforms with the quiet force of a deep-sea current before erupting into a global phenomenon. Within days, clips of Eleanor's heartfelt vows, Dr. Reed's stirring tribute, and particularly, the Vances' bewildered expressions at the reception, were dissected across social media. Eleanor Vance, once merely a brilliant marine biologist, became an overnight sensation. Her research on sustainable aquaculture and ocean preservation suddenly thrust into the mainstream. Invitations for speaking engagements, prestigious grants, and even a book deal poured in, elevating her to a scientific celebrity. For the Vance family, the broadcast was not a celebration but a public execution. Olivia, whose carefully curated social media image had always mirrored her parents' aspirations, found her corporate marketing job swiftly terminated. Her company, a luxury brand that prided itself on impeccable public perception, quietly decided her association with the unseemly family drama was a liability. The comments section of her social media posts, once filled with fawning praise, were now a brutal wasteland of criticism and thinly veiled mockery. Richard, a partner in a conservative law firm, felt the ground shift beneath him too. Client meetings became awkward, murmurs followed him in the corridors, and the firm's senior partners, ever mindful of public image, strongly suggested an early, non-negotiable retirement package. His carefully constructed life of quiet respectability crumbled, leaving him adrift in a sea of unspoken judgment. Patricia, however, remained a fortress of indignant denial. Her calls to Eleanor were not apologies, but venomous tirades. "You engineered this, didn't you, Eleanor? All for attention. To ruin us. Do you have any idea what you've done? My life is a shambles, and it's all because of your vengeful little film and that ridiculous wedding. You always were so selfish, always thinking you were better than us, with your fish and your oceans. You disgust me." She was utterly incapable of introspection, convinced she was the victim of Eleanor's malicious ambition, rather than the architect of her own isolation. Her anger was a shield, deflecting any glimmer of self-awareness, sealing her fate in a bitter, solitary prison of her own making. The chasm between them had only deepened, a permanent scar etched by her unyielding narcissism. The documentary's reverberations rippled far beyond Eleanor's immediate circle, transforming her from a respected academic into a global voice for marine conservation. Her research, once quietly funded, now attracted unprecedented grants, enabling her to expand her crucial studies into oceanic health. She became a sought-after consultant for national policy, her insights shaping environmental legislation and pushing for meaningful change. Eleanor Vance, the once overlooked daughter, was now a name synonymous with purpose and progress, her influence undeniable, her contributions immeasurable. At home, the life she and Liam had built was a sanctuary. Their coastal cottage, once a simple dwelling, buzzed with a warmth that Eleanor had never known in her childhood. Liam's boisterous, loving Irish family were frequent visitors, their laughter and traditional music filling the rooms, a stark contrast to the sterile, status-obsessed gatherings of the Vance household. Her scientific community, her chosen family, also found a second home there, discussions about plankton and policy often blending with late-night conversations and shared meals. Eleanor thrived in this environment, her introverted nature nourished by genuine connection rather than drained by superficial expectations. She was celebrated not for her pedigree or possessions, but for her mind, her heart, and her unwavering dedication to the world's oceans. Olivia, stripped of her golden child facade and the hollow prestige it offered, continued her arduous journey of self-reflection. The public humiliation had been a catalyst, forcing her to confront the values she had blindly upheld. She found a new path, embracing a fulfilling career in environmental nonprofits, her polished organizational skills now channeled towards causes Eleanor held dear. Their relationship, painstakingly rebuilt over countless coffees and vulnerable conversations, blossomed into something authentic and deeply cherished. Olivia, no longer the rival, became a confidant and a true sister, her remorse replaced by a quiet strength and a genuine desire to make amends, not just with Eleanor, but with the world. Richard Vance, too, had begun a slow, difficult thaw. The quiet shame of his complicity, amplified by the public's judgment, had cracked his detached exterior. He would call Eleanor sometimes, his voice hesitant, offering small, almost imperceptible apologies for moments long past, moments he'd once ignored. He never fully articulated the depth of his regret, but the effort, the willingness to acknowledge a fault, however vaguely, was a monumental shift. Eleanor, while never forgetting, recognized the painful sincerity in his attempts, allowing a cautious, new form of connection to emerge, a fragile bridge built on unspoken acknowledgement rather than forced affection. Patricia, however, remained immutably encased in her bitterness. Isolated and ostracized from the social circles she once so desperately courted, she lived in a gilded cage of her own making, her days filled with indignant resentment. She blamed Eleanor, the documentary, the world, for her downfall, utterly incapable of grasping her own culpability. The sight of Eleanor's face on a magazine cover, celebrated for saving whales while Patricia herself was shunned at her club, was a poison she willingly drank daily. Her world had shrunk to the size of her unyielding ego, a stark, tragic contrast to the boundless, vibrant life Eleanor now commanded. Standing on her beach, the salt spray on her face, Eleanor watched the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. She no longer sought her mother's approval, nor did she feel the sting of her father's indifference. The desire for public revenge, which had briefly flickered after her wedding, had long since dissipated. Her greatest triumph wasn't the viral documentary or the policy changes, or even the accolades that now filled her shelves. It was the profound peace that settled deep within her, the quiet knowing that she had built a life forged in truth, purpose, and genuine love. Her worth was intrinsic, self-defined, and utterly unshaken by the superficial judgment of others. The need for her family's long-sought approval had become utterly irrelevant, replaced by a deep, abiding contentment that was entirely her own.